Hello and welcome to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic. In this video, we are going to discuss the quintessential cards needed to build the core of a tribal commander deck with Kenrith the Returned King as its general. Kenrith the Returned King was the buy-a-box promo card for Magic's powerful and flavorful fairy tale set, Throne of Eldraine. Through his 5-color identity, Kenny can be called upon to be the general for any commander brew imaginable. If it can be built, then he can command it. As a creature, Kenny is a 5/5 legendary human noble for 4 and 1 white mana. As a toolbox, his litany of activated abilities include, for 1 red mana, all creatures gain trample and haste until end of turn. For 1 and 1 green mana, we put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. For 2 and 1 white mana, target player gains 5 life. For 3 and 1 blue mana, target player draws a card. And for 4 and 1 black mana, we put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under its owner's control. All of these abilities are functional and relevant, and in addition to his 5-color identity, are the reasons why Kenrith the Returned King is the single most versatile commander option in Magic. In this video, we are going to craft the core of a tribal EDH deck with Kenrith the Returned King as the general. We are not going to choose a particular tribe around which to build, because Kenny is capable of leading any and all tribes. Instead, we'll leave that choice up to you, while we showcase a core of tribal support cards that will empower and enhance whichever tribe you choose. We begin the core of this tribal support build with cards that can cheat our creatures into play. When Belby's Portal enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. We can pay 3 and tap it to put a creature of the chosen type from our hand directly into play. Once Cryptic Gateway is on our side of the battlefield, we can put a creature card from our hand into play by tapping 2 untapped creatures we control that share a creature type with it. Notice that we can activate the abilities of these artifacts at instant speed, which forces our opponents to worry about combat chicanery and end-of-turn shenanigans throughout the game. With Descendant's Path, when we reveal the top card of our library at the beginning of our upkeep, if it's a creature card that shares a creature type with a creature we control, we may cast it without paying its mana cost. If we don't cast it, then we put it on the bottom of our library. Call to the Kindred is an aura that gives us the option to look at the top 5 cards of our library at the beginning of our upkeep. If we do, then we may put a creature card that shares a creature type with enchanted creature from among those cards right onto the battlefield. The benefit of getting creatures into play for free is worth the risk of getting 2 for 1 by an opponent's removal spell or ability. We can pay 2, tap Pyre of Heroes, and sacrifice a creature. When we do, we search our library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature, and that has a mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed creature's mana value. We then put that card onto the battlefield. We can only activate this ability as a sorcery, although somewhat limiting and restrictive when considering some of the other cheat-into-play effects we've discussed already. Pyre of Heroes offers another path to strengthening, enhancing, or protecting a tribe. At instant speed, we can potentially double the number of creatures we control by casting Kindred Summons. We reveal cards from the top of our library until X creature cards of the chosen type are revealed, where X is the number of creatures we control of that type, and then we put those cards onto the battlefield. Kindred Summons can be considered a win condition in tribal builds. For the purposes of mass recurring our fallen tribal members, Patriarch's Bidding can return each creature card of the chosen creature type from our graveyards to the battlefield. We must exercise some caution when deciding to cast this spell, because our opponents also get to choose a creature type and return their own creatures of that chosen type from their graveyards to their sides of the battlefield. For a little more selectivity, through a higher investment of mana, we can plan to cast Haunting Voyage for its foretell cost. If we do, then we return all creature cards of the chosen type from our graveyard to the battlefield. Our opponents are left staring at our freshly recurred tribal army. Another way of cheating creatures into play is by reducing their mana costs. Urza's Incubator does this by reducing creature spells of the chosen type by 2 colorless mana. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we may have mana echoes add an amount of colorless mana equal to the number of creatures we control that share a creature type with it. This mana can be used to pay the colorless casting cost of our creature spells in addition to their activated abilities, or it can be used to cast other spells. Creating a strong tribal presence on our side of the battlefield was our first step. Increasing the numbers in our tribe is our next step. Whenever we cast a spell of the chosen creature type, Reflections of Litjara copies that spell. When we cast a permanent spell this way, the copy of the permanent spell becomes a token. Through Reflections of Litjara, we get 2 creatures for the price of 1. Of course, if any of these creature spells are legendary, then the legend rule applies and one will be sacrificed immediately. However, we still reap the benefits of any enter and leave the battlefield triggers. Another source of creature token production is Molten Echoes. Whenever a non-token creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield under our control, we create a token that's a copy of it. The token has haste, and we exile at the beginning of the next end step. For a one-and-done effect, Kindred Charge creates a token copy of each creature we control of the chosen creature type. Like Molten Echoes, these tokens have haste and are exiled at the beginning of the next end step. Kindred Charge can be considered a win condition in most tribal builds, as the resulting creature tokens can attack in hasty combat or trigger various tribal-specific synergies upon entering the battlefield. Since we are crafting a tribal support build, the path to victory, most likely, is through combat. So let's prepare our tribe for combat. Adaptive Automaton enters the battlefield as the creature type of our choice, and other creatures we control of the chosen type get +1/+1. Metallic Mimic enters the battlefield under the same set of circumstances. Instead of providing an Anthem effect, however, each other creature we control of the chosen type gets an additional +1/+1 counter on it when it enters the battlefield. Mirror Entity has Changeling, so it's every creature type at all times and easily slots into any tribal deck helmed by Kenny. Its activated ability allows us to pay X to change the base power and toughness of creatures we control to XX, and our creatures gain all creature types until end of turn. We can consider Mirror Entity as another win condition in a tribal deck. Rally the Ranks gives creatures we control of the chosen type +1/+1. Shared Triumph also provides an Anthem effect, but extends it to all creatures of the chosen type. Radiant Destiny gives creatures we control of the chosen type +1/+1, and also Vigilance if we have the City's Blessing. Etchings of the Chosen is another creature-specific Anthem, but also has an activated ability that can be used to give a creature we control indestructible until end of turn. Obelisk of Erd ups the ante for Anthem effects by giving creatures of the chosen type +2/+2. This artifact's Convoke ability makes it easier to cast with the help of our creatures. When Door of Destinies enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. Whenever we cast a spell of the chosen type, we put a charge counter on it. Creatures we control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on Door of Destinies. We can consider this card as a win condition in a tribal deck. The same could be said for Coat of Arms, which gives each creature +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares a creature type with it. Since this artifact can also boost the power and toughness of our opponent's creatures, caution must be taken when deciding to cast it. Whenever a creature we control attacks, Shared Animosity gives that creature +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. The bigger our tribe, the bigger our reward. With an enhanced tribal army ready for combat, let's tilt the battlefield in our favor by casting Cover of Darkness. When this enchantment enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type have Fear, which means that they can be blocked only by black and artifact creatures. Since Cover of Darkness has a global fear-enabling effect, our opponents may control creatures of the chosen type, so caution must be taken when deciding to cast it. Mirror of the Forebears can cause a lot of combat headaches for our opponents. When it enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. We can pay 1, and until end of turn, it becomes a copy of a creature we control of the chosen type, except that it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Since we can activate this artifact's ability at instant speed, combat math, creature enhancement, ability enablement, and a host of other shenanigans are in store for our opponents whenever Mirror of the Forebears is on our side of the battlefield. In order to win with our tribe, we must protect our tribe. Steely Resolve gives creatures of the chosen type Shroud. Unfortunately, this is an ability that is granted to all creatures of the chosen type, not just ours. Caution should be taken when deciding to cast the spell. When Kindred Boon enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. We can pay 1 and 1 white mana and put a divinity counter on target creature we control of the chosen type. Creatures we control with divinity counters on them have Indestructible. Note to self: if our creatures are protected by Steely Resolve, then they can't be targeted for divinity counters by Kindred Boon. As most tribal decks want to win through combat, managing the battlefield is a paramount necessity for the purposes of consistently dealing combat damage. Harsh Mercy can help rid the battlefield of scores of non-tribally aligned creatures. We choose our creature type, and our opponents choose theirs. If we're sitting at a table full of other tribal builds, Harsh Mercy may do very little to thin out the ranks of our opponent's armies. If that's not the case, however, then a well-timed casting of this removal spell could open the floodgates. More than doubling the mana value of Harsh Mercy while removing nearly all of the doubt, Kindred Dominance could be a game ender. In most instances, it should leave our opponent's battlefields completely barren, and victory should come soon after. We'll need steady streams of card advantage for the purposes of keeping the tribal heat on our opponents. When Herald's Horn enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. Creature spells we cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast, and at the beginning of our upkeep, we look at the top card of our library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, then we reveal it and we put it into our hand. This happens before our draw step. So if we hit a creature of the chosen type, we technically draw an extra card this turn. Heirloom Blade similarly puts a creature card into our hand, but first, a creature with this equipment attached to it must die. When it does, we reveal cards from the top of our library until we reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with it. Then we put that card into our hand. With an economical equip cost of only 1, it should be as easy as Sunday morning to keep Heirloom Blade equipped to one of our creatures. Icon of Ancestry provides an anthem effect to the creatures we control of the chosen type, but it also lets us dig 3 cards deep into our library. We may reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among these 3 cards and put it into our hand. For one-time, tribal-specific burst card drawing options, Distant Melody is the gold standard. We draw a card for each permanent we control of the chosen creature type. Pact of the Serpent does the same for the cost of X life, where X is the number of creatures of the chosen type. Unlike Distant Melody, Pact of the Serpent can target any player. For repeatable card drawing options, we include a copy of Vanquisher's Banner. It gives creatures of the chosen type +1/+1, and whenever we cast a creature spell of the chosen type, we draw a card. Kindred Discovery draws us a card whenever a creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks. Whenever a creature of the chosen type dies, Species Specialist gives us the option to draw a card. This creature does not synergize with other tribal enhancements and effects outside of human and warrior builds, but its card drawing ability is definitely worth a slot here. Crafting tribal decks can be tricky. Crafting 5-color decks can be challenging. Crafting a 5-color tribal deck can be overly taxing from a resource standpoint, particularly when considering the importance of versatile mana bases. Cards like Pillar of Origins and Unclaimed Territory help to smooth our mana. When each card enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. We can tap and add 1 mana of any color to cast a creature spell of that type. In the case of Unclaimed Territory, it can also tap to add a colorless mana. Cavern of Souls mimics Unclaimed Territory's mana production, except if the mana of any one color is used to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, then that spell can't be countered. Secluded Courtyard also mimics Unclaimed Territory, except its one mana of any color can also be used to activate an ability of a creature or creature card of the chosen type. One more land to consider is Mutavault. It does not enhance our tribe with any power boosts or abilities, and it does not help to fix our mana, but at instant speed, we can pay 1 and turn it into a 2/2 creature with all creature types until end of turn. As a creature, Mutavault gets all of our tribal enhancements until end of turn, and can make its presence felt as an attacker or as an out-of-nowhere blocker. This video provided a blueprint for building the core of a tribal commander deck around Kenrith the Returned King as its general. Other removal spells, disruption, ramp, and the land base can vary from build to build, and also are dependent on metagame preferences and availability. The cards discussed during this video are suggested options for constructing the core of a tribal support deck without selecting a tribe. That is up to you. Let me know your thoughts about these recommendations in the comments section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic.